Hello guys and gals, and welcome to the finale of Wario Blast featuring Bomberman. The wonderfully titled Mad Bomber final boss from this game is one to behold in the classic eyes of Bomberman fans everywhere, as I'm sure that this falls greatly in tradition with the Bomberman franchise and is diamond difficult. Everything that I've been saying throughout this entire series in terms of things getting difficult, things being built up, was mainly for the Mad Bomber here, because he hits every annoying thing that a Wario Blast bosses do right on the damn head, hits them a few more times, and then buries them in the ground with their heads flattened into pieces. The Mad Bomber does not even cut corners here. If you are not actually using an emulator and actually trying to play this stock and barrel, then you are in for a world of hurt. I would bet that it is more likely for people to get to this boss fight, quit the entire game, rather than get to the ending, because the Mad Bomber is something else, even at the top of the difficulty curve for this already difficult game. The Mad Bomber has about 3 stages, and you have to remember that this is all happening in a game where Bomberman has 1 HP. If he takes any damage, he dies. And the first stage is something to get acclimated to say the least. The Mad Bomber has a laser attack which goes ultra fast. It is probably the fastest projectile in the entire Wario Blast enemy roster. And on top of that, he also gets a missile which will follow Bomberman slowly, and combine this with the laser thing which is so fast, and you have to keep moving out of Mad Bomber's way in order to not die, and it becomes an ultra difficult game of cat and mouse that you just have to survive. And on top of this, selective invincibility comes back in full force. You have to hit Mad Bomber when he's launching his missiles, which opens up his vulnerability to actually take damage. You have to do this 3 times, and trying to actually hit the margin on 1, Mad Bomber has a tiny hitbox, and 2, it's open for only a couple seconds. And this is a game all about the timing. If you can't get the timing down, then you're not gonna get the hit, especially since how tiny the hitbox is and how slow Mad Bomber actually moves just turns this into an incredibly obtuse thing that makes everything worse. The timing in this game is not on your side, because you have to be thinking 3 moves ahead, 3 seconds ahead in order to actually get the hit. It is so luck-based and so nerve-wracking to actually make happen that the strain could actually probably kill you, considering how many things you have to keep in the air simultaneously for you to actually have any success in hitting the Mad Bomber. This might be one of those retro games that is only possible through emulation, because trying out all of this, doing it all normal style with the whole 1 hit you die and then you restart the entire boss fight in one that has 3 forms and takes almost 7 hits to die, is something that only the most patient human being is going to be able to make happen. I don't even think that those Buddhist monks that we stereotype could possibly do this, just because of how diamond hard this is to accomplish. The first hit is, if you're doing the attempts, actually probably given to you, because if you can get a line bomb on Mad Bomber right out of the gate, you're most likely going to get your first shot at. But then, the whole running around and dodging lasers and the missile at the same time comes into play, and it just turns into this incredible mechanics overload nightmare. And that's not even getting to the other parts of the final boss fight. Then, after you kill off his body, he turns into a robot that has no body and starts launching his fists in diagonal patterns. The hitbox is sort of the same. You have to hit him when he's attacking. You have to hit his small hitbox, which I think switches to his head. And again, the whole thing just repeats. And then when you think you actually got him at the end of the second stage, the third stage begins, which the hitbox gets smaller, Mad Bomber gets faster, and he can start going through the obstacles as well, making that small hitbox even harder to hit, because a lot of the times it'll just be impossible to hit. He's either on top of an obstacle or he's in between an impossible angle for you to get your bomb into. Remember, this all has to be done in the normal game with 1 HP, and even with save states, it is going to take multiple attempts to make all of this happen. It is an incredible nightmare scenario. Something so impossibly precise and so difficult, giving the boss so many different ways to kill you and this type of style of play that you have to contend with on the boss's standards and not yours is just something to behold. This is Hudson Soft's peak of the peak of just fucking you over. Like, this is something that is accomplished by the people who would care the most and the people who can hone their skills to their toughest ability. I mean, it is a true accomplishment to get this done. Is it a good boss? No, it takes so many paths of just increasing difficulty on top of increasing difficulty that it borders on just lazy design. But it's not lazy here. This is just people creating the ultimate challenge. It's not shitty design, but they do aim for that skill as high as it could be challenge. That means that they were at least trying, at least thinking with this, but is it generally enjoyable? No. Like, this stuff ranks up there with people's experience with Battletoads levels just because of how exactly like this it was designed. It was designed to kill you incredibly easily and then punish you heavily for dying. Like, you can claim that the turbo tunnel was lazy design, but it wasn't lazy exactly. It was just creating a lot of challenge. Was that a good idea? Hell no. You don't want to make a video game that is almost literally inaccessible with how much bullshit that you are throwing your players' way. Some of it's bullshit, some of it is just you aimed way too high to make a satisfying, challenging enemy, and you went way overboard, off the deep end, and you created something that only the most serious of players is going to even bother trying to do. That's why the Bowser boss fight at the end of Super Mario World is something that's well remembered and well liked, is because it hit that sweet spot of being challenging without being frustrating. The Mad Bomber is frustrating on top of irritation. It's not a good one to aim for, and I can only respect you so much if you just want to make something so frustratingly difficult that only 5% of your audience is going to bother even trying to get it past the second phase. Like, this is stuff that was designed back in the 90s for that stereotypical gamer who puts themselves through absolute hell just to get the bragging points. Like, that's all Mad Bomber is here for, to give people bragging rights. And unfortunately, that 90s attitude of, you know, the hard thing or getting to the secret boss that no one knows about has been left in the 90s, and people are just looking for accessible games now to give them a good time. This may have been a product of its age, and I suppose that's the point of a retro review, is to say, does this stack up to now? And of course it doesn't. I'm sure even back in the day, a lot of people were pissed off at that guy who was bragging that he killed the Turbo Tunnel boss in one go because he was just so badass at the NES controller. Like, people have their tolerances to bullshit, and Mad Bomber, right at the end of the game, throwing so much at you all at the same time, is not going to live on in our brightest memories. Mostly because they're filled with shards of plastic from the expensive controllers we destroyed in trying to defeat it. And you gotta remember, this was a Game Boy game, so your controller on the Game Boy was the Game Boy itself, so, you know, multiply destroying a controller by 3 and you got the cost that you're going to have to spend to try again because you are a crazy person, and I'm exactly like you. Way to give us that right at the end of the game, Hudson Soft. I definitely appreciate it.